Okay. People want me to do an Eminem and Benzino video. Why? I have no idea. And then I was like, whenever they have a video out of it, well, like both sides are talking about it, it's like, why do people need to hear me talk about it? But there was a lot of things that was left out of the video, so I said, well, I guess I can do it just to talk about that, you know. So some of the stuff was left out that's really not that significant. It was kind of addressed a little bit in the songs, but you didn't see the structure of power and how it all changed. In case y'all thought like maybe Benzino was just making up some stuff that was going on. So what had happened during that time was the fact that Eminem had become like one of the biggest rap artists, marketing wise, everything in the world. And this is the third CD's coming out. Now his third CD's coming out, and they sent it in, and the review Kim Osario did was not suffice to how people felt about the album. And they had like it got 3.5 out of 5, but it looked like it was just given 3.5 out of 5 without even a listen to the album. Like the same thing with Dre's Chronic, you know, same thing, but it puts the perception out there that these albums weren't up to par. But what was happening behind the scenes was the fact that Benzino never wanted to put Eminem out there to make him bigger than what he was, because he wasn't being pushed in his own magazine and his people wasn't supporting him. You know, he was the almighty RSO, but now they had to change their name to Made Men because they got approached by the almighty El Rukins, and they were like, dude, there's only one almighty, you cannot be almighty. I don't care, I don't want to see the name no more, it goes down. So for those purposes, the gang made them change their name. So they call themselves Made Men. Now, after being called Made Men, certain things started to happen. All this extra promotion, like the Made Men are coming. You didn't even know who they were. You're like, well, who are these dudes? They must be something serious. They got like full pages in the Source. But they ain't not in any other magazine, but the Source. The Made Men are coming. So he's going in his production studio, Benzino, and like, look, we need to talk about these Made Men and do this and that. So nobody's even checking for them. And Eminem comes out and they was like, well, we got this cover. And he was, how this get on the cover? And how we blah, 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 blah. This artist get the cover. You know, and this should be going on and that should be going on for us. You know, I'm not going to go over everything that they already have in the video. I want to go over things that was happening behind the scenes. So, what happened was, they already had this tape. Because Eminem wouldn't pay for them to get this tape for them. They were trying to extort Eminem for money. When they had this tape of Eminem saying the N-word, and calling women bitches and all this stuff. So the Source was presented with the tape once they saw Benzino had the beef with Eminem. But before this hadn't even started yet. They had already presented, like, we got a tape on Eminem doing this. So before they went to that angle, Benzino was going to make a song. First he made a little interview talking about it. Then he was putting out the song, and I'm trying to say the culture because they raping our culture and they doing this and that. And we can't sell records no more. And true, that the wheels had already started to turn. And he already saw the problems that was happening in the industry. They was rooting everything around Eminem to restructure everything in the hip-hop game. and you weren't gonna notice the change in the shuffle because you was so busy focused on Eminem. And whatever comes from his crew, that was what's supposed to be hot, and everybody else can fall at the wayside. So when Benzino made all of this public, even though he's completely like whack, Eminem came out and let him have it. You know, like in a joking way, but he made the song like, okay, you got your 5 minutes of fame, and Eminem wasn't gonna respond anymore. But when Eminem responded, it started off a chain reaction with Benzino, because he never thought Eminem would even raise an eyebrow or would be too afraid to say something to him. The fact that he responded, it was like an insult to Benzino. So he was, what? He called up Paul Rosenberg. What? Y'all gonna, whoa, so you gonna let this happen? You gonna get this dude authorization to diss me and make a record and try to clown me? And then he talking about he gonna fight me. When? Because I really do this. And Paul Rosenberg's like, come on, man, this is not, it's not, no, he doesn't want to fight you. You know, it's just records, man. Well, we got to squash this, man. Me and him. Head up. That's the only way it's going to get done. And Paul Rosenberg's like, come on, man, we're businessmen, man. We don't want to do this. Because he's trying to smooth this over, because now he's worried. So after the phone call with Benzino, he's telling Eminem, like, we need to stop now, because this is going to get really, really violent. This is way beyond anything that we have even imagined with dealing with Benzino. We don't know which way this is going to turn. Like, this is like bigger than a Murder Inc. feud, because, you know, 50 got his thing with Ja, and now Eminem has this situation with Benzino, because 50 Cent is getting ready to start his career, and they getting ready to put all this money behind 50 Cent's release, 15 plus million, and they're not finna give them to the Source, and the Source gonna sit there and tear them down. So Obi Trice album and 50 Cent album was coming out, and they was working on them at the same time. They decided not to send the Source copies of the CD so that they could grade it in the Source. It was done. And then Benzino comes out with a song dissing him, talking about some die another day. And he mentioned his daughter, and how she gonna be his wife sucking on 50 Cent and all that stuff, and called him a closet fag and everything. You know, he just really, really tapped into his mental. And once he tapped into his mental, it was over. Because M lost it. And he came out and put out a song called The Sauce and exposed everything he knew about what was going on. And if you listen to the song, he knew a lot. He knew a lot. And when the song was said, and people kind of brushed a lot of it off, there was a lot of truth to what Eminem said in that song. And once it was done like that, the Source had problems. It became bigger than Eminem. It became, we gonna shut you down to show you who's boss. So the XXL, basically Interscope, Shady, they have a deal with that slutty girl that works there, and all she likes to do is sleep with rappers anyway. But anyways, they can get any cover they want. They can get anything they want out of there. They put Eminem on the cover. They number one selling magazine. They was under new ownership because the old ownership was bought out and replaced with an ownership that was more friendly. Because the old people that ran it and started XXL did not want any white rappers on the cover, mainly Eminem. So that's why he dissed them on his second CD, the first March Madness CD. Then after that, they come around and they had this new type of new wave going around that the Source was falling out, and the Source spent most of their time bashing XXL. And it became the war of the magazines. XXL got some slick they writing about Benzino, and Benzino got about 3 pages he dedicates to XXL and crushing Eminem and Dr. Dre. So once they started doing was the Made Man couldn't get any shows. Anytime they tried to get a show or put on somebody's concert, they couldn't get them. It was harder to get rappers to give them interviews or get guest appearances on their records. Things were getting shut down for them because the powers that be got involved. The people who were structuring the money behind Eminem, the Jimmy Iovine's got involved. And the Source had to be taught a lesson and put in check. And they were going to take all the subscribers from the Source and rip the magazine away from Benzino. Slowly. By choking it to death. Hurting their sales. Stores weren't even buying a lot of the copies of the Source anymore. And XXL just had all open support to locations, different distributions that they never had before, because they wanted to blank out the Source. They used all their resources to battle the magazine, to rip it apart inside. Money is messed up. People want to leave. Oh, we're hiring here at XXL. Why don't you come work with us? They had the most powerful resource in Jimmy Iovine, Paul Rosenberg's, and the rest of the teams that was involved in the money train to destroy what Benzino was doing. So the scale was a lot bigger than what people knew. So Benzino turned to the NAACP to try to say this man is terrible for blacks and it's misleading to you, and we got to send the tape what Eminem's calling, and it was time for his trump card to play that trump card he got from the guys that tried to extort Eminem for money to buy the rights to that tape, and Eminem wouldn't pay them because they were asking for crazy amount of money. So they sold it to Benzino for cheap. And Benzino paid the price and got it, and was like, this is gonna win us everything. We gonna get it all back. What's this? And he was like, he calling black women bitches and this, to show you the rate of power that was going on. Not only did they win a court order where the song couldn't even be played, that they had to go to court and fight it over and over just so they can get 7 seconds is the only thing they could play of that whole CD. So the Source gave everybody a free CD of it in their magazine. And you get to hear the 7 seconds. But the most of it was interviews of Eminem talking about, like all stuff of them. They were pointing out how Eminem was racist and this and that. It became an Eminem slander campaign. But a Supreme Court judge stopped the song from its rightful owners of the song from being distributed. And they could only, even though they purchased the song, they could only play only 7 seconds of the song. Had like iTunes or YouTube or something like that been out, it would have been a different scale at the time. You could have leaked it everywhere so that the song would be out there. But the damage was felt because the NAACP did get involved, and it did stir the pot to where Eminem had to address it on his Encore album, where he publicly said he was sorry for using those lyrics, even though he lied in interviews and said that he never said those lyrics. I've never said those words. I had too much respect to use those words. Then he was talking about it was about a relationship, and she broke my heart and all this stuff. And you know, it was a different situation. And we come to find out that was pretty much a lie. Like, they never really dated like that. Like, he liked her and all this stuff, but they never dated. But that was another story. They reached out to her, gave her some compensation so that she wouldn't have to do interviews and all that stuff. And that's just how the businesses ran. But Benzino was still being shut down. And now that the Wolves was on them for pulling that move, it was never going to stop until they had to disband. Soon, all of their magazines was being shut down. They couldn't get to this place. They were like, oh, we can't go there no more. It was like, why not? We got it tight on money because nobody's buying the CDs no more. They go like, well, what's going on with the CDs? Oh, well, everybody is, we got to close the shop down probably in about 2 months because nobody's coming in really buying CDs. They're all going to the Walmart down the street. The Walmart? It's like, yeah, man, they building Walmarts like near the neighborhoods. There's a Target down there, a Superstore. There's another one down the street, and they're selling the CDs on sale for $9.99. And we sell them for $16.99. And you know, we had magazines, we had everything. But the Source wasn't being sold in Target. They weren't going to be sold in there. But if you go to Sound Goodies and all them, they had XXL out, they had all the magazines. The Source, they only could buy a few copies. So, mom and pop shops are getting shut down because they can't keep up with what's happening with the industry change. And Project Dissolve Hip Hop was in full effect. Once y'all gave permission for all these supermarkets to come into the neighborhood, it sucked up the black businesses and made them all go bankrupt to where you got to come to corporate to get everything. You want to buy a CD? Go to the mall. Go to Sam Goodies, where no one there can tell you about songs. You can't talk about anything because they don't know anything. It's just $11.99. You buying your CD, you out. You gotta go to the superstore to get it. So they shut you out. And it sucked the Source dry. And it let you know how much power was back in the Eminem machine and what he was used for. Really. Now, two of the biggest artists that passed away, Tupac and Biggie. The person they choose to conduct both of the projects and run it was Eminem. The Dead Wrong album, Eminem's on there with Biggie. Eminem and Biggie. Tupac. Eminem. Eminem, out of all the rappers, all the MCs in hip hop that knew both. Some who have done songs with both. And you give it to Eminem. He's in control of the projects. He's controlling and conducting a song that has Tupac and Biggie on it. He's doing the production. He's producing it. Nobody says anything. That's how you knew this whole game is screwed up. It's not what it used to be. The wheels have changed, and nobody's trying to turn it back. People were completely brainwashed, and this was what was really going on behind the scenes, because Eminem had took a blow to his credibility, and the fact that he was stepping away from rap a little bit because he really didn't want to go through all this. Then Proof died like shortly after, and he was just living off the money he was getting from having the money he was getting from having 50 Cent. So after that, it was really just focus on my artist. But after Encore, he was done. And Encore was such a bizarre album because they were trying to do different things, and then the Ja Rule beef was going on, and then you got the Benzino situation. So the content of the album, they were trying to go back to getting out of everything, and it's hard to go back when you are not in the same element or mind state that you was back when you was doing your other records. You can't go backwards. And they didn't figure that out until they had that disaster album called Encore. And some of you guys on there, it sold almost 6 million records. What do you mean it was a disaster? I'm talking about the record, the actual disc. If you ask Eminem which was one of the albums he didn't like the most, Encore would definitely be on the top of his list. That and that Relapse. You know, that first album back after the long layoff, that would be his number one. The one that had 3 a.m. on it, and yeah, that album. That would be his number one. Then Encore would probably be his number two. And he called that the Shaking Off the Rust album, and he admitted it was whack because the album just didn't make no sense. It was that bad. Bagpipes and Band-Aid or whatever, that was just hot garbage. All of it was trash. I'm like, they could trash this whole disc. This is garbage. Well, I hope that gave you some ideas about or some insight to what was going on behind the scenes there. I'm out.